Hi everybody, welcome back. I hope you had a lovely 4th of July weekend. I certainly did. I'm still a bit sleepy from it all. I almost did it from my bed and then I was like, that's just a little bit too unprofessional for this super professional blog. So here we are, back at my desk. We're doing it. I will try to stay awake. But of course I will, because it's a lot of fun today. We are covering Lifted, which is just a ridiculously fun short. It has a very big place in my heart. It was from 2006. It went before Ratatouille. And if you did not manage to see Ratatouille, which I did for a shamefully long time in my life, but go see Ratatouille because it's brilliant, and I'm sure I'll talk about it later once I'm done with all these silly little short films. They're not silly, they're brilliant. So yeah, premiered before Ratatouille. It also has a special place in my heart because Gary Rydstrom directed it, and if that name sounds familiar, he was the sound guy for all the others, I don't know, for the weird way my brain works, I actually remember the sounds a lot better from my childhood than a lot of the plot lines or things like that, so it's almost like he had a big part in raising me. So the fact that he made a film makes it all the better. And the fact that he made this silly little wonderful film is also great. But it's also a brilliant film because it uses lots of film stuff to make it effective. Film stuff, very technical, can't you tell? I majored in this. But anyways, it's going to work a lot like last time. I'm going to dive right in. We're going to talk about it. This is our first post-Toy Story film. It's our first film not directed by John Lasseter. And yeah, it's a lot later if you think about it. It's a full 20 years after Luxo. But you can see a lot of the same stuff at work. It's not that different, except it looks a lot smoother. So we're gonna, like I said, jump right in. So when we're talking about Lifted, there's one thing I want you to really focus on, and that's how you feel about the protagonist. Because the way you're set up to feel about the protagonist is very different than the grumpy snowman from Knick Knack. Because this is the first time that they decide to challenge this idea of an unlikable protagonist in a comedy. So instead of being creepy or angry, Lifted's protagonist is incompetent, and with the misplaced confidence of a teenager. So not very heroic and not set up for success, but not unlikable, which is the key thing to remember. And the film has the basic problem/unattainable solution structure that Knick Knack does, but the story is not as kind of clear cut. You like with Knick Knack, it's just a very awesomely clear structure where it's like boom, 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 boom. It's very easy to use to explain the structure. Lifted is the same structure, but they just kind of mask it a little bit more. And a lot more of the humor comes from sight gags and plays on genre than Knick Knack does. So we're going to see them play with the horror genre a lot, or the kind of sci-fi genre. And the thing about genre is it's all about what you know about those films when you come into it, and so it plays off of your expectations. And Lifted also carries on the Pixar tradition of providing an alternate fantastical explanation for a familiar event. And so to kind of provide a visual on top of that so you know what I'm talking about, think about the toys under the bed. That's what that is. The idea of why would toys be under the bed beyond just a child losing them. It's that idea. Take an everyday thing and provide it with a crazy kind of give life to the lifeless type of explanation. So we get a bit more of that in Lifted. It's almost like the big concept behind Lifted is that idea. So If you've seen it, that'll be clear. If you haven't seen it, I will explain it to you, but you really should see it. I found out while I was Googling some fact checks today that there's another film called Lifted from 2010. Not our film. We're 2006. So if there was confusion, I'm sorry. Hopefully the other one was live action, so you could kind of figure it out pretty quickly. So, when Lifted begins, all signs point to it being a horror movie, which would probably be slightly disconcerting if you are going into a Pixar film. And it turned out that actually happened. Inside Out had the first 3 letters of Insidious 3, and some theater played it. Some very scared children. But Lifted is not a horror movie, but it's definitely going to play off of that idea. And so it begins, and there's only ambient noise, night noise, kind of like crickets all over the place. And the camera shows off this quiet house in the middle of a cornfield. I'm thinking of this swing that comes up like later, but that's a very odd quiet house gesture. So there are individual shots of a porch swing. See? Haha, I was thinking of that. And a windmill that point to something unusual because the swing and the windmill are both moving on their own without anyone there to make it happen, or any wind to kind of justify it happening. And they have a nice little creek, so that you, not like a water creek, but like a noise creek, to kind of freak you out all the more. Notice sound guy playing a lot with sound. And these are very patient and slow shots, and because of that they let the suspense build. We're waiting to see what happens, and the sequence ends in a bedroom with a sleeping man. Fascinating. It's still quiet, and he lets out this sigh, so it kind of lulls us into a moment of calm, so that the next moment is even scarier. Because out of nowhere, with a big noise, this bright light shines through the window. Wouldn't it be awesome if this was in 3D? Bright light. Sorry. I am in a weird mood today. So, bright light shines through the window, and it's meant to be a jump scare. It's supposed to be in stark contrast to the slowness of everything else so far. And it's also immediately followed by a wide shot revealing a flying saucer and a blast of cliched science fiction music on the soundtrack. So now we understand that we're not in a horror film, but now it's the idea that we're in a sci-fi film. So it still could be scary, and it still is nothing original, but just give it a few more minutes. It shifted genres. And this introduction is a series of deliberate alien movie cliches. So one of the comedic strategies is to play with the familiar, and in order to do that, they use Thomas and Johnson's theory of anticipation again. So you're waiting to see what happens based off of your previous knowledge before coming in. But this time, however, the filmmakers develop what Thomas and Johnson call a surprise gag, which only works when the audience is expecting one thing and suddenly, without warning, something entirely different happens. And that's a quote. So that is a quote from Thomas and Johnson. Sorry to not specify. So Lifted takes advantage of this concept, both with small gags and with the film as a whole. So the animators want the audience to immediately recognize what is going on as a typical alien abduction that they have seen on screen hundreds of times before. So, like, if you're familiar with the genre, this should be nothing new. And then after the reveal of the flying saucer, it's going to change. So it cuts back to a sleeping man, and he's being lifted from his bed by an unseen force. And he's being pulled toward the window, and we're still in cliche world. We still think he is being abducted in the normal way, but it's going to abruptly change here. And so he's getting pulled towards the window, and they deliberately put the camera in a position that makes it look like that he's about to go through the window totally no problem. And that is all set up for the first gag of the film, when the man hits the wall with a big thunk. And this is an example of a small surprise gag. So we thought the man was going to go through, and we were supposed to get a laugh out of the fact that he does not. And it's a surprise in relation to everything that has happened before, because we were thinking we were in a different movie. And so if the audience has seen alien abductions before, we have not seen a botched abduction before. We have not seen it done by an alien who doesn't know what he's doing, what he or she is doing. And so this establishes the film's goal, because we see him hit the wall a few more times to show that whatever force behind this abduction doesn't know what they are doing, but they are trying really hard. And it also sets up that this is not the horror film that we thought we started. Instead, it is a comedy, because it's funny. It's kind of a very basic humor that we see him keep getting whacked against the wall, and we find that funny. And so we now have a goal, which is to abduct this man, but we also have a tone, which is comedy. So with the goal and the tone established, we can take on the comedic structure of Nick Nack. So we can see something attempted over and over again in order to make us laugh, just like Nick Nack. So, again, we're going to do what I did last week, which is try to stop after some reasonable time to give you a little bit of a breather, make it a little easier to digest. So we're going to come back in the next video and start talking about the reveal of the protagonist and kind of how he's characterized and what happens next. So, thank you for being with me again. I hope you come back. And I'm excited to talk more about this film because it's fun. Alright, bye-bye.